right, types of percent. We're going to set this up like the dude on Acellus told us to. So we have 12 is 50% of what? So writing this out, get my screen drive. If we could do this in our heads, we could think 50% means half of something. 12 is half of what? 24. That's totally an option. But if you're not ready for that kind of mental math, let's just write it out. So 12 is 50% of what? Well, for the what, we would write a variable. That's what we want to know. Okay, I'm going to turn this percentage into a decimal. Remember, percents are out of 100. 0.50, that's in the hundredths place. Good to go. 12 equals 0.50 times x. That's what our problem says now. Now, to get this variable by itself on one side of the equation, we undo what's been done to it. So it's being multiplied by 0.50. To undo multiplication or do the opposite of multiplication, we divide. We divide by the number that's on the side of the equation with the variable. This is the variable. This is the number on this side of the equal sign, the equation. Okay. What I do to one side, dividing by 0.50, I have to do to the other because equals, they have to balance. But you do to one side, you have to do the other, okay? If I divide the 0.50 by 0.50, I would get 1 times x is equal to x. Another way to think about it is, oh, they've canceled out now. Now I'm left with my variable, hooray. And then I would go 12 divided by 0.50. Remember, fractions are division in my calculator if you wanted to. Or you could do it in your head. I'll do it in calculator. Hold on. 12 divided by 0.50 or 0.5 equals 24. Booyah. Okay. What is 12% of 75? Okay. Again, the what is what we're solving for. We don't know. What is 12% of times? That's a times. That's a dot. Pretend. 75. Okay. Now, in this equation, the variable is already isolated on one side of the equation. Cool. Now we just have to solve this. 12% times 75. I'm going to write 12% as a decimal. 0.12. Percents are out of 100. This 12's in the hundredths place now. So in my calculator, I go 0.12 times 75. 0.12 times 75 equals 9. So 9 is 12% of 75. What is 55% of 60? Oh, my allergies are getting me. What? We don't know. X. What is 55% of 60? 55% of times 60. Switch the percent to a decimal. 55% as a decimal is 0.55. Again, we have the variable by itself. So in our calculator, we plug in this 0.55 times 60. You get 33. 33 is 55% of 60. 50% of 60 or half of 60 would be 30, so that makes sense. 28 is what percent of 80? 28 is what variable? Percent of times 80. Okay. We want to get the variable by itself. So we mess with the 80 that is on that side of the equation with it. We want to get it away from that x. To undo the multiplication, we divide by the number that's attached to the variable. On this side of the equation, we now are left with x equals 28 divided by 80. I get 0.35. So here's the kind of tricky part. What I've gotten myself is a decimal form here. Remember, this is in the hundredths place. So what they want is a percent on a decimal. 35 out of 100, or 35%, is my answer. So 28 is 35% of 80. What is 60% of 40? What is 60? Oh, that's a beautiful 6. Percent of times 40. Okay, rewrite the percentage as a decimal. 60% is 0.60 because that decimal says 60 in the hundredths place and percents out of 100 times 40 gives me my answer to the what? The variable, the x. Okay, so I go 0.60 times 40 in my calculator. And I get 24. 24 is 60% of 40. That makes sense. Because 24 is a little bit more than 20, which would be 50% of 40. 42 is 28% of what? $42 is 28% of what? Turn my percentage into a decimal. 28% is 0.28. Now I have this variable that's not by itself on the equal sign on the one side of the equation. To undo the multiplication, we divide. We're dividing by 0.28, the number that is on the side of the equation with the variable. What I do to one side, I do to the other because I have to have a balanced equation. When I do that, boom, I'm left with x, yay. That's what I want, the isolated variable by itself. And I go 42 divided by 0.28 in my calculator. 42 divided by 0.28 gives me 150. So 42 is 28% of 150. 4 is what percent of 20? 4 is what percent of 20? Divide by 20 to get the variable by itself. X equals 4 divided by 20. I get 0.2. Okay, where's my thing? But that 2 is in the tenths place. We're dealing with percents here. We want something out of 100. I'm going to plop a 0 here. Now I have 20 hundredths. Clever. Now, to write 0.20 as a percentage, that 0.20 is in the hundreds place. Percents are out of 100. So we've got 20%. 4 is 20% of 20.